My name is Nick Devine. This is my testimony of what Jesus Christ has done in my life. I live in Sonora, California, and I'm a youth pastor up here now, and we're just going to walk along. I'm going to share with you guys what's happened in my life. So, I was born and raised on this property right here. This is where everything began. I actually grew up in that little house up on the corner right there. I'm 34 years old, and I was raised in a family that didn't talk about God, never went to church, and I was just raised in the world. That's how I was raised. I was raised to just, get a job and to go after those ambitions that were in my heart. And my dreams as a little kid was I was going to be a professional athlete. That's all I lived my life for. I just wanted to play sports. And I pursued it. I had determination that someday I was going to be either a professional basketball player or a professional football player. And when I was 16 years old, I realized that there was just stuff inside of me. I just didn't have peace. I wasn't happy. I was discontent. I had all this commotion going on inside of me, and I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to tell anyone what was going on inside of me, so I would just get these fits of anger. I had so much anger and hate because I was always trying to achieve these things in my life that I could never attain. I was always trying to be something that really wasn't me. And at 16 years old, I took my first drink of alcohol. And when I took that first drink of alcohol, something inside of me changed. Something inside of me was like, I just found an answer. I just found an answer to all the stuff that was going on inside of me. I didn't have to feel anymore. I didn't have to feel pressure, because playing sports, I always had this pressure to be the best. I always had to be the best, and if I wasn't the best, I'd beat myself up. And I would never feel good enough. I was never good enough. Whatever I did, it was never good enough. And I took that drink, and I was like, I just felt this release. And that was the beginning of a whole new journey in my life. That was the beginning of me going somewhere and going places that I never dreamed I would ever have to go to these places. About a year after I took that first drink, I was a month into my junior year of high school. I went to school drunk. I drank like a fifth of peppermint schnapps before I went to school in the morning, and I was just completely blacked out drunk at school. And I ended up getting expelled. I got taken to the hospital, and they're like, you know what, you're done. You're done with school. We're making an example of you, because I was playing sports. I was a good athlete, and they're like, man, we're sitting you down. You're done. You're kicked out of school. And that was the day that I got this attitude inside me that said, you know, I don't even care. I didn't even care about life anymore. I'm done living. What am I going to live for? All I had lived for was to play sports. And now that I had that dream taken from me, I got this attitude of just hate. I got this attitude of anger. I got this attitude of, you know what, I don't care about anything. I'm going to do whatever I want, and I'm just going to go out and just live how I want to live. And that's when I just delved into drug addiction. I started smoking pot. I started doing cocaine. And all of a sudden, these things just started happening really quickly. And before you know it, I was so far entrenched in this stuff that I didn't have time to breathe and time to realize what I had just opened this door to. I just opened the door to this demonic realm, to this realm of darkness that was going to just destroy my life for many years. A week after I turned 18, I had a keg in the back of my truck, and cops pulled up, and I ended up getting my license taken away for a year, and I ended up getting charged with a minor in possession of alcohol. And this is where I ended up. I ended up at the Tuolumne County Jail. I ended up getting a 35-day sentence, and this was my first stint in jail. And this just led me down this path of just continuously going to places and getting in trouble, getting put behind bars. So, you know, I never dreamed that I'd have to end up being at a place like this. It's stuff that I saw in the movies, and I was like, man, I would never want to go there. I never saw my life heading in those directions, but that's what happens when I started drinking and doing drugs, is it just would take me to do things that I didn't even want to be doing, but I couldn't say no. So I ended up coming here for 35 days, got my license taken away for a year, and yeah, man, it wasn't fun. You know what it feels like to get everything taken away from you and to get put inside of a cage like an animal. And yeah, man, I would get in there and I was like, man, I never want to go here again. I never want to have to go through this stuff again, God. And all of a sudden I would get out and I'd find myself back into these things. Like 2 weeks would go by and I just couldn't learn my lesson. I couldn't get over these things because I had something else going on inside of me, something much bigger, something much stronger, more powerful. And come to find out later it was the enemy, man. The enemy had these strongholds in my life where he was just pulling me in these directions where I couldn't say no. And so after getting saved and walking with the Lord for over 5 years and being in the ministry, I was a youth pastor from 24 to a little after 26. I traveled the world. I was in Africa doing missionary work. I went to Mexico doing missionary work, just taking the gospel, taking the word to different places, fulfilling the commission. And yeah, man, I served Jesus, dude. I got delivered. I was living for Jesus, how I knew how to live for the Lord. And roughly after 26 years old, I got sat down as youth pastor. I still had strongholds in my life that hadn't been dealt with. I still had areas in my life where I was walking in sin and falling into sin. And I had sex with my girlfriend at the time, and I brought it to my pastor, and I was just, man, I had so much shame and guilt and condemnation for what I was doing, because here I am, standing for Jesus, preaching the gospel, and yet I still have these areas of sin in my life. So I take this to my pastor, and we talk about it, and a couple months goes by, and all of a sudden I'm back in this situation where I'm having sex again, man. I'm falling into sin. I'm giving myself over to sin, and I ended up getting sat down. My position got pulled. I got sat down, and I was at this fork in the road where I could have just kept my eyes on Jesus and got restoration, or I could have just went another way. And I allowed frustration, disappointment, anger. I allowed all those things to come into me, and I took my Bible and I set it down and I walked away. I walked away from the church. I walked away from the Lord. I walked away from the Father who set me free, who delivered me, and I went back to the world. I was like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. I turned my back on everything. I was like, if this is how the church is going to be and this is how people are going to be, I'm walking away from the ministry. So I walked away from the ministry and I cut out all the Christians in my life. I was like, you know what, I don't want anything to do with these people. I don't want anything to do with all the way that they talk and live, because I know everyone else has got things that they're struggling with too. And I felt like I was just all alone out in this world, all alone. So I set everything down, and a year after I did that, I find myself in San Francisco, and I'd been sober for over 5 years at this time. I find myself in San Francisco, and all of a sudden I get this real subtle voice that says, man, just go have a drink. It's gonna make you feel better. Just go have a drink. And I walked across the street. It was almost like I was just completely possessed by something. I walk across the street and I go and buy a fifth of Jack Daniels, and I stick it in my pocket, and I walk back in where I was with everyone, because I didn't want anyone to know what I was doing. And I pour this drink into this cup after being sober for all these years, and I poured that poison right inside of me, and something happened. Immediately I was taken back into this realm of darkness, into this realm of just chaos, and I find myself in a hotel room, being up for the whole night. I find myself in this hotel room smoking crack cocaine, smoking methamphetamines with a bunch of transvestites, with porn all over the place and needles all over the place. And there I was, back inside of this place that I had been delivered from when I was younger, and here I am back in the darkness, back in all the stuff that I'd preached and said I was never going to do again. And for 2 years I smoked methamphetamines. I did drugs. I started robbing people. I started getting into all the crazy criminal activities, and I started seeing demons, and they started talking to me and saying, we got you. We got your life. You're not going to go out and do that stuff anymore. This is what you're doing. We own you. You belong to us now. And for 2 years I ran in the darkness. For 2 years I ran away from my daughter. I left my daughter. I didn't talk to my daughter for 2 years. I didn't even say goodbye to her, because I was completely possessed by darkness, and it had taken me out into the pits, into the underbelly of this dark world where I was just so out of my mind. Out of my mind. I would stay up for 7-8 days at a time, and I started doing all these criminal things, and the grace of God came and met me when I was sitting in this house. I used to steal all this stuff and keep them in these storages, and I had my car loaded with all this stolen property, and I'm sitting in the house. I'm getting ready to go deliver this stuff so I can get some more drugs, and all of a sudden God sends the cops to come to this house and to surround this house and to come and look for me. And I'm standing inside the house, and I wanted to run. I wanted to get away because I didn't want to stop doing this stuff. I was running, and this woman looks at me and she's all, "You have to stop. You can't keep running. You can't keep doing this stuff." And it was that moment where God was like, "It's time. It's time to stop." So I walk out those front doors and I put my hands up and I get arrested. And I find myself back inside of this place right here. Back in this place that I thought I was never gonna have to go back to jail. I was like, man, I'm never gonna have to do drugs again. I'm never gonna have to go back to jail. And I find myself inside of this jail after being up for about 8 days. I find myself in this jail, and the first day I came in here, I get this fish kit that has my blankets and the pencils in it, and it has this little cup inside of it, this cup that was for water. And I pull this cup out, and I look, and carved on the side of this cup, God was like, "I'm here. You can't run from me. You can't get away from me. I have a calling on your life. I have a purpose for your life, and you can't keep running because I'm going to pursue you. I'm going to chase you down, and I'm going to meet you, and I'm going to pull you back." And I look on the side of that cup, and carved in the side of this cup was the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verse 32, and it says that we shall know the truth, and the truth shall make us free. I've been living in so much bondage. I was so chained and bound. I'm 28 years old, looking at doing 7 years in prison. And I was like, man, what happened to my life? This is not how I thought it was supposed to go. And God met me there. God met me at that point, my lowest point, the point of where I was hopeless, the point of where I was like, man, there's nothing, I'm done, I'm going to prison for 7 years. And the Father stepped in and He's like, "I'm here. I never left you this whole time. I'm here. I love you. I have destiny for you. I have a plan for you." And it took me 8 years after that day, 8 years to finally lift my hands and say, "God, I surrender. I'm done living for myself. I'm done doing the things that I want to do. I'm done living for the world because there's nothing out there for me. You made me for purpose. You made me for destiny. And I'm done." 8 years is when I finally lifted my hands and I was like, man, I surrender. I surrender, God. I just want what you want. I just want to walk in your will. And He's all, I want you to go back to where you came from. I want you to go back to where you came from. And I'm going to restore you. And I'm going to fulfill the thing that I've called you for, because the call of God is irrevocable. It's not going anywhere. And God brought me in a full circle back to this town where I went through all this stuff, back to this place where I was a youth pastor before and a minister before, and then I was on the front pages of the paper of being a criminal, and all of a sudden I come back to this place where people are like, man, what are you doing? Oh, you're back serving Jesus? I was like, yeah, I'm back serving Jesus. It's not the same this time. He pulled all this stuff out of me. He took me through a season of repentance to where I cried for 3 weeks straight, and He showed me the things that I'd been doing, and I said, God, forgive me. Wash me. Because He'll never leave us. His love is relentless. It pursues us even to the darkest places. It chases us down. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter where you've been. He said, I love you right where you are. And I love you so much that I'm going to meet you right where you are, and then I'm going to take you to somewhere greater. His love. It's the love of the Father. That He loved us so much that He sent Jesus for me because of where I was. I was living in sin and I was going to die. Not only die in this flesh, but I was going to die and go to hell. And He's like, but I love you so much. I'm going to send my Son down. The cross is an instrument of death, but it's also an instrument of His love for us. He's like, I love you so much. I want to make a way so you can come back to me. I want to make a way for you. I want to bring you back because I made you to walk with you. I made you for a relationship, for intimacy. And when you experience my love, it just begins to break all those walls, all that hardness that I had built up against people, against the church. All of a sudden, His love started coming in and gently just pulling all that stuff down and giving me that new heart, like it says in Ezekiel. I'm going to give you a heart of flesh. I'm going to put my heart inside of you so that you can take what I have done in your life. This is all what He has done in my life. Without Him, I am nothing. Without Him, I would be dead. It's by His grace He delivered me from death. Numerous times I should have been dead. And He's all, no. I got a plan for you. I'm going to come after you. I tried to kill myself with drugs and drinking and poisoning myself. And He's like, no. I got a plan for you. I'm coming after you. But He doesn't force it. He just patiently waits. He waits for us to say yes, for us to surrender, for us to receive that gift. It's not just a gift of eternal life. It's a gift of life right now, abundant life right now. The fullness is now. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that I get to be here right now, man. I'm grateful that His love wrecks me every day. It's His grace that allows me to be here. And that's why I say, God, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. When I surrendered on May 14th and I lifted my hands and I repented, I said, God, from this day forward for eternity, whatever you have for me, I will do. Wherever you want me to go, I will go. Because my life is yours. So it was about 11 months after I set my Bible down from being a youth pastor. I got sat down and I walked away. I walked away from the ministry. I walked away from the church. And I went back out and I was just, man, so deep into doing drugs and deep into darkness. And dude, the enemy was just devouring me. He was devouring my mind. He was devouring everything about me. And I was just, man, I was living in complete darkness. And I was getting into these places where I was so depressed. I was so down, and I was just completely bombarded by all these lies that I would drown myself out with drugs and alcohol and all these things, and nothing was working. So I finally started getting these thoughts of like, man, just kill yourself. Just get out, kill yourself. Just take your own life, get rid of yourself. And I came up to this mountain, and between the ages of like 12 to 15, I used to come up to this mountain and ride my mountain bike through here. And I used to have so much fun up here. And I was about 27 years old, and I climbed up this mountain, and I had a Smith & Wesson 45. And I came up this mountain because I was done. I was like, you know what? I can't keep living like this. I had so much shame and guilt, and I was like, dude, I gotta finish my life. So I came up here with an intent to blow my head off, to kill myself. And I remember coming up here, and I wasn't scared because I was already dead. I was already dead inside because of the lifestyle I was living. And I was like, man, I just gotta finish everything that I'm doing. And I came up on this mountain. And I remember taking this gun and loading this gun and putting a bolt in the chamber. And I sat on this bench over here, and I had my hood on, and I stuck the gun in my mouth. And the grace of God is what always pulled me back. The hand of God stepping in and pulling me back. And I put that gun back away in my pocket. after knowing the Lord, after walking with the Lord, that's what the enemy wants to do. The enemy wants to devour. The enemy wants to destroy. He wants to take our lives. And there's just so many people that are going into these places that are contemplating suicide. And in this area, the spirit of death and the spirit of suicide is all over. People are dying all the time. People are overdosing on drugs. And Jesus is the only way, man. He's the only one that can deliver us and to take us from that very moment and to step in, even when I didn't even realize He was stepping in and saying, no, this isn't what I want you to do. This isn't the path that I have for you. I have something else in store for you. And I walked back down that hill. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that God had sent His angels to guard me and to protect me in that time. That God had sent His angels to come against the spirit of death that was trying to devour my life and take my life. That He had stepped on the scene. The Savior.